Deja vu on the road as Forest fall to yet another defeat away from the City ground. But where did it go wrong? Welcome to Forest Fan TV. Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever in the world you are, whatever time of day you're watching this. Hope you're having a fantastic day, and welcome to your in-depth analysis on Fulham 2, Nottingham Forest 0. Coming up in today's video, we'll analyse the goals. We'll go through your favourite stuff, the heat map, the average player positions, and we'll talk about where the improvements were and where the game could have been won and lost. Before we get started, as always, please don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, and if you want to become a member for 99p, just hit that join button down below. Alright guys, let's jump straight into this because there's a lot to talk about, and let's start with the actual goals and let's go through those. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I really can't be bothered to do this video. It's been taking me all morning to get the energy together to run through it because it's just going to frustrate me, and as the game did, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see how bad we are currently away from home. I know people are going to say there was 20-minute periods in the second half where Forest looked good, when Shelvey obviously came on and changed the game, even though the results still stayed the same. But there's been too many of these things where we're holding on for dear life as Forest fans to little cameos and pieces of positivity that we can take, especially away from the City ground. And I get that. But overall, I could make the argument that it was Fulham that just sat back for those 20-25 minutes in the second half and allowed Forest just to play in front of them. What people are forgetting is we've scored, I don't think many of us guys have forgot, but we've only scored 3 goals away from home. So the likelihood statistically that Forest are going to score anything on the road is very, very slim. With the worst away goals in not just the country, but in Europe, it's about time that Forest started to be more progressive up the pitch. Because now what it's allowing to do is let the oppositions have mentalities of, if we go 1-0 up, that's it, game over. Statistically, we're going to be unlucky to concede a goal against Forest. So in my opinion, although Shelvey did come on and make a difference in the game, I still feel like Fulham just took their foot off the gas and then just hit us on the counter-attack. In fact, it was the right tactics from Fulham to do, draw Forest out a bit and then hit us on the counter-attack, get that second goal and finish the game off. So overall, when it comes to the away performances, they need to change, and they need to change quickly. There's been many discussions about formation over the weekend, 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, false 9, all this stuff. To me, right now, it doesn't matter away from home if we're not applying ourselves correctly, if we're not having the players have the right mental attitude towards how they should play. There was no desire, there was no passion, there was nothing. It feels like Forest are starting to, there's that word gel all over again from the beginning, and trying to get used to these new players. Who is the best midfield? Which striker should be playing? Should we play in false 9? What's the defensive centre-back pairing now going to be? So are we going through another transitional phase, just as we, quote-unquote, had started gelling? But anyway, that's a discussion for another time. I want to talk you through the first goal to start with, so let's jump into it. Okay, so this first goal comes from a silly free kick given away by Aurier. Aurier wasn't great this match at all. He's a player I do highly admire so far this season at Nottingham Forest. But that free kick he gave away was rash and reckless. You can see Forest are lining up in your typical position here, just holding their line outside of the D. I probably would have preferred them actually on the line there. It's easier to judge where you and your fellow players are when you've got a visual line in play. But nonetheless, as the ball comes in, the 2 Fulham players here are holding an offside position. But the ball is going to come really deep round the back towards here. Now, what I want to show you here is this battle. Fulham did this against us at the City ground, where they have 2 blockers and then they have a free man who can get away. And that's exactly what happened. Again, we didn't learn from what happened at the City ground. And then Willian is going to pull away from here, get round the back and be on a 1-on-1 with Scarpa, which is a complete mismatch. So let's push that forward. As you can see, there's the mismatch. Scarpa is in the wrong body shape there completely, not really able to challenge Willian into the header, and the ball's just going to be headed straight back across here. Now, actually, the defensive line at the moment is actually quite good. Felipe looking solid in the middle, Mangala tracking the man here, and then I think that's Aurier on whoever that Fulham player is. It might actually be Mitrovic from that angle, can't really tell. Now, the ball gets headed across into the middle. It's a good double block from Felipe. But look at the difference in the two players, Felipe and Mangala. Felipe is looking and facing the ball. Mangala has turned his back on it and is facing the goal. And this really does piss me off. If you're going to block a ball, if you're going to be paid the money you're being paid, look at the challenge. At least you have a better chance of getting the block in. That's the difference between a Champions League defender and someone who's just really falling away from form right now in Mangala. It's unlucky when the ball ricochets because it ricochets out wide. But again, the same thing I want to highlight here is Aurier. Aurier turns his back and creates this ski slope. That's all that's going to happen is, and it did, once it hits his back because he's bent over. I don't know why he's done that. Usually you'd expect Aurier to face the ball and maybe charge slightly to block the distance that the ball can be played. He's turned his back, it's literally ricocheted off his back and going to pop up, and that's exactly what happens. The ball then comes across. Lodi does a really weak header, almost slices off his head. It's hard to show it in a freeze frame, but then it does end up in Willian's feet. And again, what you have here is Lodi sliding in and being done by the play, which is fine. It happens. Lodi's been quite accurate with his slides, although they sometimes do infuriate me. Here he got completely done. It reminded me of the Leicester match from earlier in the season when we were away. The thing that bugged me, and me and Ant had a bit of an argument about this, are these three players here. You got Scarpa, you got Mangala, and you've got Freuler there. The reaction time to what's happening on the pitch is really poor. If you watch what happens now, once Lodi's committed and made the mistake, you would expect someone to start cutting in. And in specific, I'm talking about Scarpa or I'm talking about Mangala. The only person that does move here is Freuler, but he's got the most distance to cover to get across and block the challenge. And then what happens, obviously the ball is hit. You can see if you just look at the frames here, Scarpa and Mangala haven't moved much. The only one that's really moved is Freuler. And Willian, although the finish is good, Willian has too much time. If you give someone that freedom in front of them in the box to take the shot, then you're asking for trouble. And that's exactly what we've got. Just in the background, just watch our mate here, Wood. Just watch where his feet are, and we'll run the footage forward. The ball comes in, it's finessed on his weaker foot, into the top corner she goes, and then just watch Wood again. So let me play that back. Wood's there. Wood's still there. The ball goes into the net. Wood, still there. Whoops. Wood is still there, not moving at all. Feet on the ground. Just watch the position of the feet. Feet still in position. Feet still in position. Hands are now moving. We have a little movement from Wood. Hand is going up. The right hand is moving up. The feet are still planted. Scratches the back of the neck because obviously the first thing you need to do when you are clueless is scratch the back of your head because you don't know what the hell is going on. Still scratching away as everyone's off celebrating. Hasn't moved an inch. And there's no desire from him whatsoever. Look, I don't expect him to have saved the shot or whatever, but you can see Scarpa's got his hand over his head in disappointment. You got Freuler just looking like lost, whatever. You got the other players at least showing a little movement, but Chris Wood is literally a wood. He's standing there completely still. I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't feel like he wants to be there, in my personal opinion. I think he's just riding out a paycheck and sees what happened. Maybe he proves me wrong. I'm not convinced by it at all. He was appalling all game. But that was the first goal. So, although it was a good finish, it was the lack of closing down from Scarpinia and from Mangala and obviously Lodi's header. But it was the stuff beforehand where Aurier turns his back on it. Mangala turns his back on it. The other thing I just want to quickly point out while we were, taking the mick out of Wood there. if I just bring it back very quickly, is here. Mangala again. Look at his position. Remember, he had his back to the play when it was Felipe and him blocking. Now he's done this weird thing where he's almost taking the knee like, it's the pre-match Black Lives Matter thing. I don't know what's happened. Maybe he forgot to do it before the match and decided he needed to catch up there. But had he just stood in position, potentially with a little jump, he may have been able to block the flight. Maybe not, because it was a good finish. Overall, it's a poor goal to concede. It really is. But it's nothing compared to the second goal. All right, let's move on to the second goal quickly, and you can see the ball's being laid here into the Fulham player, but again, it's the lack of understanding. We got Freuler standing here, you got Shelvey standing here, and you got Dennis standing here. None of them will react quickly enough. Once the ball's fed into the Fulham midfielder, then you see a little bit of a reaction. Dennis is like, oh crap, that's my man. He's making an overlapping run. Let me chase him down. Freuler is just having a look to see what's going on there. He needs to have already smelt the danger and be getting his ass back. So does Shelvey. Shelvey started to move, but not very quickly. Now, the ball gets then laid back off into the channel, and Dennis is chasing him. However, what Dennis needs to do here is not go clumsy, and what he does, he goes to put in a challenge to slow him down. You either clean him out with the challenge or you continue jockeying. What you don't do is put a half-assed challenge in and then suddenly end up on a dangerous counter-attack. So now with that, if you have a look at what's going on here, you've got your two centre-backs, they're fine, they're in line. You've got Lodi trying to recover back here as well, but then you got, I think it's Pereira there with the freedom of the pitch, which is the annoying bit. But let me just quickly move the camera across so you guys can see. Okay, so as we run this forward, this is where the infuriation comes in. Look at this. This is a dream setup if you're counter-attacking right now. And what you're going to see here is Pereira is still in complete freedom. There's no Shelvey. There's no Freuler anywhere within the scene here. You can see it's completely empty behind me. Now, what did Fulham do here? They look up and they see the freedom of Pereira. Just watch where Aurier is. Not at one stage, and I watched the whole sequence of this, not at one stage has Aurier, has Worrell, Felipe, or even Lodi had a look around to assess the situation. The whole time they've just been watching the ball. Aurier is actually, the first time here, seen Pereira in freedom. And now panic mode is about to hit, because what he's going to do is completely charge. What he hasn't done is check behind him to see what's the danger behind there. And if we run this forward, you're going to see bang, Aurier's gone. Now, first mistake, Aurier shouldn't have been the one to go. To be honest, Felipe probably should have squeezed in to this space. The next mistake is, look at the space it's suddenly left. Again, Joe Worrell is just completely ball watching, barely aware that Aurier is there, unless he can see him in his peripheral. That he can only confirm, not me. What should happen now is, now that Aurier's made the mistake to come across, Worrell has to hold his position. Worrell has to hold his position where he is here. At least there he has some option to get the cover in. So when we play this forward, watch what happens. He's just completely sold himself, run forward from here to there. Aurier's gone in. Now, it is unlucky that he gets nutmegged in a second, but it's the fact that it's the positional play that's atrocious. Now, again, look at it here. I'll just draw a line there. There's the penalty spot there. There isn't a single Forest player in this side of the pitch. As long as that ball from Pereira gets across to one of these two players, it is a guaranteed goal, and there's not a single thing Keylor Navas can do. There it is. He slid in. Ball watching still. Ball watching, ball watching, ball watching. It's schoolboy defending. It really is. And then the ball comes across. Now the panic. There you go. The quickest you'll ever see Joe Worrell move. Looks like he's about to become an Olympic sprinter in a slow motion race. And he's going to bust his gut to get across. But you give any player in the Premier League that space, even Danny Welcrap, and he's probably going to score from there. You can't dream of a situation like that as a Premier League player. And then obviously we know the ball goes into the net. But again, just watch the positional play. There's our four centre-backs. Defenders. You can throw a blanket over them, which normally people say was good, but not in that position in the boxes. It was pathetic. Now, we were we were pressing, we were trying to get the equaliser. But conceding that goal is just down to stupid mistakes from Aurier, and then Worrell not understanding the situation, and then Shelvey and Freuler not tracking back the Pereira run in midfield. There are circumstances, I get it. Shelvey I thought was brilliant when he came on. I'm not trying to hang him out to dry on this one. I'm just literally analysing the situation and showing you guys where I think the mistakes were. So those are the two goals. There was plenty of other stuff going on. Willian was destroying Worrell down the right-hand side. Worrell was completely out of position pretty much the whole game when he came on. Felipe was brilliant, and there was loads of... and Shelvey, as we mentioned, was really good. But let's go and have a look at the heat map and the average player positions, which will tell you a very, very interesting story. Okay, let's look through the average positions because there's some telling stories to be had here. And this is once all the players have been in. I had to do it this way because obviously Bolly and McKenna came off injured. You can't really take much from what their average position was saying. But the thing that is screaming out to me and the thing that's been doing my head in when Worrell plays is this like magnetized approach he has to the right-hand side. Look at the gap here between Felipe and Worrell. It's absolutely huge. And it's not Felipe who's in the wrong position. Worrell just keeps getting dragged out here because he's trying to protect the space that's left in by Aurier if Aurier goes forward. The problem is, what you want to happen there is that one of your CDMs or your two in the midfield will just pull out and cover that space. You know, that would be the ideal position for me, rather than have, you know, that Grand Canyon effect in between the centre backs. You can see from Felipe's side, an experienced Champions League, La Liga winning player. He doesn't get dragged in out here in behind Lodi too much. His average position is actually spot on. And the defensive line is quite nice and high, and away from home, that wasn't too bad at all. Now, what you noticed as well is when Dennis came on, he started to pull out here wide on the left and spread the front line. You got nice little gap there across the front four. And then MG Dub in the middle, and then IU coming in there. I mean, don't take IU into account. He did absolutely nothing during the match. But this started to look a lot better. And then what you had here was Shelvey and Freuler connecting together very close to each other, looking for those quick passes, etc., and starting to maybe form a connection. You never know. But overall, the big shape issue here was Worrell. He needs to be more here on his average position. And that way, it doesn't cause that space. Because what you can see from the Fulham side is that they attacked Worrell. If we take this as the halfway mark here, all these players within this box, you know, make up a majority of the team there. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish players who are attacking and targeting our right-hand side because they know that Aurier is going to end up here, high up the pitch. That's going to leave, if you just think about it here, if Worrell is here, he's exposed against Willian, against Pereira, and against Mitrovic, especially if Aurier is too high up the pitch. And as we showed you in the goal, these two who were sitting in the 2 were not coming back, say, for example, in the counter-attack. So it was good targeting from Fulham. We fell into that trap quite easily. But even if I show you, you know, the average position of like Wood, for example, so let me bring that up 2 seconds. Here we go. You can see what Forest's initial game plan was in that half, and that was to get Wood on the ball so that, well, not Wood on the ball. I mean, does that sentence even, you know, make sense in what we saw in the game? But Wood to sit deeper than Morgan Gibbs-White, to either hold the ball up and then play it around the corner to Jono or Scarpinia, or maybe flick a long ball on to Morgan Gibbs-White to run in behind. You can see where the average positions were. And I know, look, Bolly wasn't on for a long time and McKenna looks like he's playing at left back here. But again, you can see there's a clear movement of the defensive line higher up the pitch. And this line is okay. It just has to be operated better. But they're too spread here at the moment. Look, Jono is very isolated out here on the right in his average position. Scarpa isolated here. And then you can see, which is interesting, is Mangala was playing deeper than Freuler in the first half as well. So that's the average positions. What does it tell you? It tells you that the plan is to use Wood, as I just mentioned, but that's not working. For me, he's got to be dropped. Look, normally I hear the argument of play him into the team, see how he is after 5 to 10 games, etc. Not on this one. If the rumours are true about the obligation to buy is down to goals scored and games played, then quick decisions need to be made on Wood. He has to be cut from the team. And he has to be stopped. Otherwise, we're about to piss 15 million down the drain to sign a player who won't even get into the championship at this rate, the way he's playing. He just looks completely uninterested. Anyway, let's move on to the heat maps. Okay, so in the heat maps, a couple of things I want to show you is what you can see from the Fulham shape here and how clearly Felipe makes a huge difference to what happened on the pitch. Just have a look at the general shape. Look where they're attacking, getting most of their touches. It's all down their left-hand side, our right-hand side. And there is not much play whatsoever coming down our left-hand side. They didn't get many touches on the heat map there, which again shows you how well Felipe was playing, and actually Lodi, apart from the mistake for the first goal, was actually having a really good game. In terms of us, it's this general shape here where, you know, you could almost build a wall on this side of the pitch. In the middle, we're just not penetrating at all through it. We see this shape so often, and there's a couple of touches in the box, a bit more than we had in the Leeds game. And surprisingly, this was away from home and that was at home. In terms of the touches were quite similar. It's actually the closest Forest have been to matching opponents in terms of touches of the ball. The passing accuracy was horrific. What I want to show you is just a couple of battles, and this for me is the one that's frustrating me. If we bring up Felipe, you can see his touches and where he's sitting is very similar to where his average position was in that middle left channel of the pitch. You can see he actually comes forward. He's very progressive with the ball. He actually really looks like he's going to be a signing for me. And in terms of, you know, that's exactly where you'd want the darkest areas of a centre-back's heat map with some channel play here on their side of the pitch. Now contrast that with Worrell. That's where he was playing most of his game. Out on the right, covering for Aurier, completely out of position a lot of the time, being, you know, spun left, right and centre by Willian, who's older than him, who's a lot craftier than him. But again, anyone who zigzags in on Worrell is going to absolutely have a field day. But even if you look at, you know, a lot of you will say, well, Aurier plays too high up the pitch. I just want to compare and contrast the two left and right backs. You can see, actually, Lodi has more darkened heat map areas higher up the pitch than Aurier does. Aurier was operating quite heavily in his own half here and not crazily out of position, although he did on a few occasions have that happen. But he's playing very wide to touch because almost being forced that far wide because of where Worrell's position is. So you can't really say that, okay, Felipe hasn't pulled out wide to the left because he hasn't got Aurier, you know, bombing on his side. No, actually, he's got Lodi playing a lot higher on that left-hand side than where Aurier was. So there's no real excuse for Worrell. And then if we just quickly overlay that, you can see that basically Worrell and Aurier were just two right backs for us. And then look at it contrasting on the left-hand side. There's the nice dark area for Felipe. So Worrell needs to sort himself out in terms of his position. He has to shrink that gap between the two centre-backs. It's too far. It's too far. If you look at his furthest point there of his dark patch and Felipe's furthest dark point on the patch, it's crazy. It's way too wide. A lot of you are asking me, how did Wood perform? Well, crap is the answer, but here's his touch map as well. Very limited amount of touches in the box, bit out left. Like, he was kind of just running around like a, well, I say running, I use the word very, very loosely. He was just a bit, he was trying to press and close the ball down. But it's like having a slow motion train that's just coming out of the station coming towards you. You got plenty of time before he gets near you and you need to start, you know, thinking and panicking about moving the ball. But overall, he had 16 touches and wasn't great at all. So that was him. The other one is Ayew. Ayew, who I forgot came on after the 63rd minute, the whole game had 3 touches. He had just as many touches in the 2 minutes he had against Leeds. He is going under the radar in terms of his performances as everyone's ridiculing Wood. However, Ayew's done nothing since he's come on either. So, if you're going to be harsh on Wood, then technically you need to be harsh on Ayew as well. Look how deep he's playing. He didn't even know what the opponent's box looked like in terms of touches. Just very poor as well from him. Now, where were the shining lights? Obviously, Shelvey was fantastic. 25 touches from the moment he came on. Operating more so on that right-hand channel. Now, this is really going to help us. Why? Because most of our play comes down the right-hand channel. But look at his position. The shape of that is actually the shape and the touches he's taken of someone who can play in a 4-2-3-1. And operate on the right hand side. Now you balance that with someone on the left hand side who can do that job. In my opinion right now I'm probably leaning towards Danilo. Danilo and Shelvey in the 2 and then the 3 in front of them will probably work better. Now, there's been so many comments saying we got overrun in the 4-2-3-1. We can't play with 2 midfielders, etc. You can. Let me just remind you that Fulham were playing in a 4-2-3-1. How is it they didn't get overrun? The reason being is their centre-backs were a lot better and they're more drilled and they can risk those positions as well. We need Worrell not to play in the next match, but the problem is he probably is going to because Niakate won't be fully fit in time. But once we got Felipe and Niakate as the 2, then that opens the options up for the 4-2-3-1. So I don't expect us to see the 4-2-3-1 against Man City. I expect us to go back to a 4-3-3 and pack out the midfield. But then after that match, hopefully we can see Niakate back in and putting him in a 2 with Felipe, where both of them are progressive, strong and physical and can play higher up the pitch, will free us up into a 4-2-3-1. But we're going to have to wait on see on that. Look, Dyer on the road sums up our away performances all season. We have to change in terms of the way we're playing. The players have to show passion and they can't rely on us, the fans, to get them across the line like we do at the City Ground on numerous occasions this season. They have to be self-motivated and they've got to get out the blocks quicker. We've got tough matches coming up. So it's important that some points are picked up as the gap to 18th is now 6 points, which is still, good. It's hard to pick up points down there from the teams below. Not many will go on back-to-back wins, but let's see what happens. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. I know it was a bit longer than normal, but there was a lot to discuss. If you've enjoyed it and if you like these type of videos, let me know just by hitting the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We'll catch you on the next video. Come on, you Reds.